Do this look like work to you? Nah, looking at the lights like it's all that is for me.
This is the Double A Balls Podcast with your hosts.
Ooh. See, now we're spitting hot fire and
Las Vegas.
Woo! Andrew Romanella.
I like that. That's what I'm talking about. I'll be the best cheerleader. Father Time apparently doesn't know Tom Brady's address.
And Anthony Rinaldi.
Love the hardwood. That's my passion. Houston, they don't have a problem. Listen, you don't even have to listen.
Now it's time for the show.
We ball hogging like we ballin' for the heat. I did it burn from passion.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. This is the Double A Balls Podcast, episode 13. Lucky number 13. I am your host, Andrew Romanella, and alongside me, as always, is my partner, Anthony Rinaldi.
Andrew, how are you?
I'm doing great, and per usual, we got a great show. NBA playoffs is about to pop off. NHL playoffs. The picture is clearer starting tonight. The Whataya Got, the MLB, which we love, the Yankees, the Mets, Shohei Ohtani, the whole 9 yards, and a little bit of what does Anthony know about sports.
Hockey playoffs, Andrew. Do you believe it? Devils are in. Rangers fire Vigneault. Are you kidding me? Let's get right into hockey. I love hockey.
Whoa. We do one segment on hockey. Now you come in pumping here. You want to start the whole show with hockey. We're going to go to your, I guess now, second favorite place in the world, Anthony, and that's the NBA hardwood first.
Andrew, I can't believe it. It's finally here. 82-game season. For some teams, it's down to 1. For some teams like the Knicks, they've been playing golf for 3 months now. But I think we're starting to see a little bit clearer the playoff picture. I know it's still a little muddled. Some teams seeding-wise are still a little up in the air. But I want to start in the East first. And do you believe in the process, Andrew?
Yes, they are legit. I think that they are slowly, this might be a major overstatement on Wednesday morning, but I think that they are slowly becoming the team to beat in the Eastern Conference.
That was the question. Are you in my mind?
Because it's true, though, because
Even
anybody...
without Embiid?
Yes.
Right now?
Only because they've proven that in the last 5 or 6 games without Joel Embiid, they could still win and play at a high level. That's what scares me about the Sixers, is they've now proven that they could probably beat anybody in the first round. And as the standings are currently constituted, they would be playing the Milwaukee Bucks in their first round matchup. However, with 1 or 2 games remaining on each team's schedule, there's a lot that can change because how tight the Eastern Conference is. But either way, as it stands, they could be playing the Milwaukee Bucks. I believe they could beat the Bucks or any other team in the 6, 7, 8 slot for that matter without Embiid, and then the likelihood of getting him back in the second round just makes them that much more dangerous.
That's going to be a fun matchup. The Freak versus Ben Simmons.
Well, don't you believe that there are so many great players on so many teams right now that you could see, for the first time in a long time in the NBA, a lot of upsets in the first round?
Who doesn't love upsets, Andrew?
I mean, that's what hockey playoffs are based off of, if you think about it.
Oh, easy with the hockey talk.
That's what makes it so exciting. But yes, we will stay on the basketball. But if you go down the list, Raptors, great players. Celtics, 76ers, Cavs, Pacers, Bucks, Heat, Wizards. You really look at the Heat and you say, you don't really have a superstar on that team. But other than that, the other 7 teams listed right there have what you would consider a superstar or a top 15 player in the NBA. That's why I think you're going to see some nuttiness.
Who do the Pacers have?
Victor Oladipo.
He's not a top 15.
You don't think he's top 15 this year in the league?
No. Top 20 if he's lucky.
Either way, top 20, top 25 even. There's still a guy on that team that can carry the team. There's still a guy on the Wizards, even though we have to prove it, in John Wall, in Bradley Beal, that can carry a team. You look at the Wizards right now, they're in the 8 slot. The Toronto Raptors might have to play John Wall and Bradley Beal and the Washington Wizards in the first round of the playoffs. Does that mean that we're going to win? Probably, because the Wizards and every other Washington team, as I always say, finds a way to choke in the playoffs. But I think that's what's so intriguing going into this year's playoffs.
I'm still going to rock with my dude, King James. Give me Cleveland. I watched them steamroll over the Knicks last night, which is a joke of a franchise. But you see, I mean, you can't count Cleveland out, Andrew. I hate to say it. I don't openly like to root for LeBron. Being a Knicks fan, hating the fact that he'll never come to New York. even though we have that dumb billboard outside at Madison Square Garden. But I just think that it's still the East runs through him, regardless of what Philadelphia is doing right now. 14-game winning streak, not too shabby.
I think Ben Simmons has had 16 straight triple-doubles in that time.
Taking a page right out of Russell Westbrook's book.
He's averaging this year. Listen to this stat line for the quote-unquote rookie. And I obviously throw my quotes up there because, as you know, Ben Simmons was drafted last year, but is playing his first season in the NBA this season. Either way, 16 points per game, 8.1 rebounds per game, and 8.2 assists per game. That is a very impressive stat line for a guy playing his first 82-game season who started his first full year with a serious injury.
Dude is scary. 6'10", got handles like Magic Johnson. Sees the entire court, dishes the ball. Can't shoot a lick though, that's for sure. He's got an ugly jump shot. Kind of looks like Anthony Ronaldo out there in Purple Squad.
Oh,
But I don't think Philadelphia is legit. I know they're playing well right now, and you obviously want to go into the playoffs with momentum. 14-game winning streaks, I'd call that momentum. And the train's on the tracks, butthead. Shout out Major League Baseball.
you're right, though, is that it really does go through LeBron no matter how many people or how many teams, start winning and playing very well going into the playoffs. Because at the end of the day, we've probably seen this. If you went back and looked for the last 8 years that LeBron's made it to the finals, right? Between Miami and Cleveland.
Hold on, that's a stupid stat line right there. The last 8 years.
I know.
Straight to the finals.
The fact that you could say that regularly and it's true and no one questions it because everybody in America knows it's true is mind-blowing. Either way.
If this dude doesn't make the finals, it's like a bum year.
But that's my point. So you could go back and look at the course of that 8 years of history in the NBA, and you could probably look at a bunch of teams that streaked going into the playoffs, and we, guys like us, as you say, talking heads like us, or on ESPN or WFAN or whatever radio station they're listening to, are probably sitting there going, this is the year, LeBron's not going to the finals, this is the year, and then somehow, every year, in April, May, and early June, he finds a way to get his team to the finals and put himself into contention to win another championship.
LeBron versus the field. You took the field. How confident you feel in your field?
The last 2 weeks has made me a lot more confident. I'm not going to lie. I think I just spoke with my heart when I made that bet just because I don't want LeBron so badly to be in the finals again because I just want to see somebody else in the finals, which brings me to the next point. This could be the highest percentage year in the last 4 or 5 years that you don't get Golden State and Cleveland in the finals.
True, Bob.
Right. Because Golden State's banged up. Right now, as it stands, they would be playing Oklahoma City in the first round of the playoffs, which is the last team you want to play without Steph Curry in your lineup in the first round of the playoffs. A lot can change.
Yeah, banged up. You don't want to see a juiced up Russell Westbrook.
The last thing you want
Paul
is to see
George
Russell Westbrook.
Always makes that dagger shot. Melo's a bum.
Yeah, and the thing, though, is you could see Paul George and Russell Westbrook beating Golden State almost single-handedly in the first round. Or, let me change that statement. It wouldn't surprise you if you saw them two beat Golden State.
Andrew. Let me ask you this question. Burning question. I died to ask you since I walked into our studio.
Give it to me.
It was actually on the radio debate yesterday a little bit. I believe with your boy Screaming A. Smith. Who has more pressure? Since it's almost set with the playoff picture in the West. The 8 seed's still up in the air. It's one game on Wednesday. Teaser alert. Who's got more pressure right now? Durant, because it looks like he'll be playing Westbrook, or James Harden and the Rockets? Because you know that team has not had much playoff success, even though they're playing a pretty weak 8 squad, either Minnesota or the Nuggets.
I'm going to go with James Harden and the Rockets. And the reason being, Golden State's won 2 titles in 3 years. That team has gotten their championships. They know that for the last 3 seasons, they've been the best team in the NBA. It's been them and everybody else. They also know that this has been the most roller coaster season in the tenure of Steve Kerr, and essentially since they've had that big three of Thompson, Draymond Green, and Steph Curry together. Take KD out of the equation because obviously he just joined last season. So I'm going to go with the Rockets because there's no pressure on Golden State. They know they're the best team. They know that they're injured. But at the end of the day, they know that they have 5 or 6 guys on their sidelines that have won before and they've been there. Whether their bench depth is good or not, or has experience or not, at the end of the day, across the side to the Houston Rockets, their playoff experience deep in the playoffs is none. None. Chris Paul has never been to a conference finals. James Harden, yeah, he's been to a finals before, but he wasn't the guy. He was the third guy in the three-headed monster of Westbrook and Durant. Last year, we saw Harden try and carry his team to the finals, and you saw one of the worst performances in the last game of the season you've ever seen. So at the end of the day, until the Houston Rockets, Chris Paul, James Harden, Clint Capella, the rest of the group prove to me they know how to win the big games in the playoffs, the pressure will always be on them in my eyes.
Speaking of your boy, Russell Westbrook, 18 rebounds last night in a big win to basically secure one of the seeds in the Western Conference.
It was
playoffs.
huge. They beat the Miami Heat 115-93, and I hated it. Carmelo came out like 2 weeks ago and guaranteed we were going to be in the playoffs, and all of a sudden we lost like 2 straight. Nothing kills me more than that. Just go about your business. Don't say anything. Just go. I love the confidence. Just go about your business. But either way, it was a big win for the Thunder. The only thing that scares me, and I'll take the other side of the coin here. Yeah, do I believe they could beat Golden State? But I've said this to you numerous times on this show. The only thing I didn't want from the Thunder was to find a way to end up in the 7 or 8 seed. Now, they're 47-34. And if you take a look at the standings, San Antonio's in the 6th seed at 47-34. New Orleans is at 47-34 in the 5 seed, and Utah's at 47-33 in the 4 seed. So Utah has 2 games remaining. Everybody else, Pelicans, Spurs, and Thunder, have 1 game remaining. The Timberwolves and the Nuggets in the 8 and the 9 also have 1 game remaining at 46-35. So there is a real chance that the Oklahoma City Thunder could actually end up being in either the 4 or the 5 seed, which would be huge. Because again, for me, at the end of the day, it comes down to avoiding one of those 2 top teams in the Western Conference in the first round of the playoffs.
I got a question for you. He needed to get 34 rebounds to average a triple-double for the 2nd straight season.
That was in his last 3 games, correct? If he had
No, his last 2 games.
last two.
And he'll be the only man on the earth to have done that feat, Andrew. 2 straight seasons averaging a triple-double, which is absurd when you think about it.
So he needs 16
Against Memphis
tonight. So he needs 16 tonight.
You know he's going to get every single rebound.
You think he does?
100%. He needed 34 going into it. Ironically, he got 18 last night.
That's pretty funny. And you know
he wants it.
Yeah, because
Only guy to ever average 2 triple-doubles. Come on. Or for 2 seasons back-to-back. And now your boy Ben Simmons has 16 games. Looks like he may be trying to carry the torch of the triple-double machine.
overstatement of the year. Tell me, yes or no, if Russell Westbrook gets a championship, and I don't know how long he plays for, but let's just say he keeps up maybe it's not a triple-double every year, but it's just his consistency of play, let's call that, okay? The way he plays, the energy he plays with, the passion he plays with. If Russell Westbrook does that and gets a championship, Anthony Rinaldi, do you think we could be watching arguably the best point guard in NBA history?
Wow.
I know it's big. I know that might be a slight overstatement.
I need time to think about that.
But
Best.
the argument is real.
If he gets a championship, I mean, with the numbers he puts up, hard to argue.
Because
Arguable.
the only argument, and it's funny, I bring up the point, but I'll make the argument on the other side, is Magic Johnson won multiple. And Magic Johnson was a pioneer in his sport at the time. Like, the way Magic Johnson played back in the day, that's why he was so special. He was like something no one's ever seen before. Like, he could do stuff on the floor that no one had ever seen before. And tell me if I'm wrong, a lot of people believe Magic Johnson is, if not number 1, the top 3 greatest point guard of all time. I look at the way Russell Westbrook's starting to change the game, and the way he plays on a nightly basis and what he's done specifically in the last 3 years, really, the last year with KD and the 2 without KD, and you look at it and I'm saying to myself, for 82 games every single year, this guy brings this energy, brings this effort, brings this type of talent, and there's no quit at all. But the problem missing on his resume, as everybody talks about, is the championships.
And I don't want to start or continue the argument of do you need a ring to validate your play on the field. There are numerous guys, Dan Marino, Charles Barkley, Patrick Ewing, lots of these guys, studs, don't have rings, to claim for their name. Dudes like Bill Russell got 11. Not taking anything away from that. But Russell Westbrook's motor is unbelievable. And the fact that this dude can literally run at 110%, 48 minutes, 82 games a year, averaging a triple-double. I mean, he carries the Thunder. He whatever he does on the court is however the Thunder's going to go. But I don't know, man. Best point guard. I mean,
it's a great argument, though, right?
Really is.
I mean, it's legit.
Probably watching from my generation wise, I would say he's definitely one of the top PGs in the league. But wow, I need to break down. You think he's up there with AI, Stockton?
Well, again, I guess
Hall of Famers.
Really, what you do is you decide what your parameters are. Because if you're the type of person, and you just made the point, if you're the type of person that goes into it saying, well, I think they have to win championships, or I think it has to be multiple. If I'm looking at this guy, he's got multiple championships, and I'm looking at this guy and he's only got one, well, that guy obviously takes the cake because he's got multiple. Or are you and I call it the reasonable person, the logical person, because no one realizes, people realize it, but I think when people make that argument about having a championship, they don't realize how hard sports are, how hard professional sports are. And let me remind you, you don't play defense with only one guy. You play defense with 5. So you could be the best player in the world. And I know the argument is made that if you're that good in the NBA, you should be able to carry your team to a championship. I don't care how good you are. LeBron James is 3-5 in the finals. Not because LeBron James isn't the best player in the world or because he didn't show up in the finals. It's because his team around him wasn't good enough to beat the team that they were playing across the floor. You have to be able to play D. You have to be able to spread the floor. Hey, you score 100 points. Even if LeBron is on fire, even if Kobe scores 81, someone still has to score 19 for you to still find a way to win that game. So the championship argument to me is obsolete because I want to look at the whole body of work. And the last thing I look at, and maybe I'm a little bit different here, but I love seeing how they changed the game. Did you come in, and I call them video game players. Are you a video game player where you come in and I can create you on the screen? Or are you that type of dude that's so different, that has a different type of game? This is why I talk about Russell Westbrook, where when your name gets said, it's completely different category, the way you play, than everybody else. That's what I look at. To me, that's what Hall of Famers do.
I agree with you 100%. I want to see Russell Westbrook carry OKC, which he's going to have to do to the Western Conference Finals. What, he went there, once with Durant?
He went there once with Durant, and he went there twice with Durant. Once was to the finals, and another time they lost in the Western Conference. And then in 2014 and 15, I believe, this is the third straight year for the Thunder in the playoffs, and not many people realize this. In Scott Brooks last year, in I believe it was 14 and 15, Durant was injured majority of that year. The Thunder didn't even make the playoffs that year. I believe they were 47 and 35 that year. They finished in the 9th spot. So if you think about it, year without Durant, last year with Durant, they blow a 3-1 lead with Golden State. Then against Golden State in the conference finals. Then Durant leaves and goes to Golden State. Russell carries the team to the playoffs. They lose in the first round. Obviously, they didn't really have a chance last year. And now in your 4th year removed from not making the playoffs, your third year removed from not having Kevin Durant anymore, you're looking at it and you're going, we actually have a legit team that can go and compete. And I think that is the best part about this scenario for the Thunder. And Paul George also came out and said the other day that he could see himself playing here.
That is an interesting little nugget there from Paul George, because you always thought he may go back home to L.A. and kind of form a super team over there, like we talked about last week or two episodes ago.
But he's being logical. He's saying he's not going to really obviously hardcore think about it until the end of the year, which is very smart. I mean, I think that's for any player. Bryce Harper did the same thing in baseball the other day. He essentially said, if you want to talk about 2019, you can go ahead and call Scott Boras, my agent, and get an idea from him. So a lot of these players, Paul George included, it's going to be a big time free agent class in this offseason, Ant, for basketball. And so is the following year. The next 2 years for basketball and baseball, we can get into that a little bit later, obviously. We have plenty of time for baseball. But in the next 2 years, there could be a lot of crazy change in the NBA.
Hopefully the Knicks open their eyes and figure something out and get one of these free agents. But I always figure, I mean, you got to think about Paul George. If he heads over to LA, that's a huge property tax hit over there in California. I don't think Oklahoma even has the state tax.
You know what's funny is I've heard a lot of that conversation recently.
I'm not a tax guy, so please don't ask.
From different people, though, about why guys choose different teams or whatever the case is, because certain states and the taxes that they're going to get on the amount of money they make really does have a factor into it. And I agree with that, though. But also, we talked about this last week, too. It's also the marketability. You can get yourself marketed in all 50 states now. It does not matter where you play.
So, Andrew, let me ask you. Tell me what you're thinking about NBA. Give me the NBA Final Four. Give me the Western Conference and Eastern Conference matchup that you want to see or you believe in your heart of hearts is going to come down to.
This is going to be...
Because I have a little nugget here I want to talk to you about.
This is going to be really hard because of how juggled the standings are right now. And I'm taking a shot in the dark here. And because things could change, obviously, based off matchups. But just to answer the question, so in the East, I am on the train. I believe the 76ers are going to be in the conference finals.
Wow.
And I believe they're going to be playing the Toronto Raptors. I really do. Each of the last week or two has really given me the feeling that the Cavaliers are not as good and they're really going to have a struggle early. I also think it could possibly be the first year LeBron loses in the first round of the playoffs, but that's a conversation for another day. In the Western Conference, I'm going to give the nod to Golden State out of respect, and I'm going to give it to Houston because I've been reading a lot about D'Antoni's defense, and we've talked about it a lot. And I know I've poo-pooed the Rockets for Chris Paul and James Harden not having playoff winning experience. Everybody has. But if you're asking me the conference finals, I think Houston's good enough defensively. Forget how great they are offensively. Defensively, to get there, and I just think Golden State is that type of team that knows there needs to be a different switch turned on in the playoffs, and they know how to turn it on. So I'm going Philly, Toronto, Golden State, Houston.
I want to give Brian Windhorst credit. He was on ESPN the other day, and he was mentioning that he relates Golden State and Cleveland a lot like the remodel of your kitchen.
Does he? Because if you're looking to get your kitchen remodeled, or your bathroom, or your living room, or your home office, maybe you need some new specialty interior trim, or you simply just need a remodel on your house, on a room in your house, or whatever it is in your home, we have that guy. And he's Frankie Franchise Construction. And you can call him at 973-789-6236 or email him at frank.franchiseconstruction@gmail.com. We've told you before, we'll tell you again. Frankie Franchise Construction is one of the best in the construction business. Hardworking, reliable. He's going to be there on time, and he's going to get it done, hopefully close to on time. Call him 973-789-6236 or email him at frank.franchiseconstruction@gmail.com. Mention the Double A Balls podcast, and maybe, just maybe, you will receive something off on your first purchase. We continue to move on, but before we do, we will remind you to find the Double A Balls podcast on Twitter and Instagram.
Social media.
At Double A Balls on both DAABpodcast.com. Subscribe, iTunes, Anchor, Podbean, PowerArmPerformance.com to get your Double A Balls podcast apparel. Support the movement, ladies and gentlemen. You heard it last week. You're going to hear it again this week. The Frankie Franchise Construction sponsored NHL updates. Yes, again, hockey on the Double A Balls podcast. The playoffs have been set for the NHL. They get kicked off tonight with a slate of 3 games. The Minnesota Wild against the Winnipeg Jets. The Philadelphia Flyers against the Pittsburgh Penguins, which is going to be a fantastic series in the state of Pennsylvania. And the Los Angeles Kings against the Las Vegas Golden Knights. Let's give you a rundown of the playoff picture, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to start in the Eastern Conference, Anthony, and the first game we are going to look at is the Tampa Bay Lightning against our hometown New Jersey Devils.
Andrew, I am no hockey aficionado, but my quick update, it looks to me like the Devils may be up on the Lightning this season already. What, 3-0 already?
That is correct.
A season sweep of the Lightning?
The season series sweep for the New Jersey Devils of the Tampa Bay Lightning, 3-0. They beat the Lightning in October in a shootout 5-4, in February 4-3, and in March 2-1. So clearly they were great games, and obviously Tampa Bay is the number 1 seed in the East. 1 year from being outside of the playoffs looking in, and then the Devils played really, really well down the stretch to secure that second wild card spot. That series will get started on Thursday. Maybe a little teaser into Andrew's What Do You Got? Either way, the next series in the Eastern Conference, Anthony, is going to be the Boston Bruins, who are battling for that number 2 spot in the Atlantic against the Toronto Maple Leafs. A lot of hockey aficionados, Anthony, are saying that this is going to be the series to watch in the NHL.
Boston has that big dude, right? Chara. Is that his name?
Zdeno.
Nailed it. He's like 6'10", isn't he?
Rick DiPietro said the other day that Zdeno Chara is one of the most fit, strongest, in-shape people you've ever seen for a 6'10" guy. And apparently, this is a little side nugget for you, Zdeno Chara will follow the Tour de France, according to Rick DiPietro, and ride the route of the Tour de France after the bike riders are done. That's how great of shape Zdeno Chara is in. Well, his Boston Bruins will be taking on the Toronto Maple Leafs. The Maple Leafs won that season series 3-1. Toronto taking the last game on February 24th. There are going to be a lot of very good players in that game. And for me, I look at Tuukka Rask on the Boston side. I really feel like they can't be beat, but you look at Matthews and you look at the young guys that the Toronto Maple Leafs have, it's going to be a very good series. So if you had to choose one, in my opinion, one series to watch in the NHL playoffs, it's going to be the Boston Bruins against the Toronto Maple Leafs. Moving forward, the Washington Capitals, who we have seen before in this position, taking on the Columbus Blue Jackets. The Capitals won that series 3-1. Are the Capitals going to be good enough this year to get over the hump of the first or the second round in the playoffs? It's going to be very tough. A lot of people are picking an upset for Columbus here. Columbus finished the season on fire in the NHL, and when you look at the struggles that Alexander Ovechkin and the Washington Capitals have had in the past few years in the playoffs, and you look at the fact that the Columbus Blue Jackets are coming in at 6-2-2 in their last 10 games, you look at it and you say, could it be another year for the Washington Capitals going down early in the playoffs? Well, that will be determined, and we will see. Columbus got the better of Washington some month and a half ago. That was the last time the two teams played. Moving forward, last matchup in the Eastern Conference, I mentioned it before, the Pittsburgh Penguins versus the Philadelphia Flyers. They get that kicked off tonight. Claude Giroux and the boys are going to look to stop Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, and the rest of the Penguins as they look for what feels like their fourth cup in 4 years. That's how good they are every single year. And the one crazy thing about this series, besides the fact that the Penguins swept it 4-0 in the regular season, is that it's the state of Pennsylvania. And I think everybody in sports hates the Philadelphia Flyers.
Yeah, I don't even like hockey.
Or Philly, excuse me.
Hate Philly, ugly ass people. I got a great solution for the NHL. They want to make a big splash. They should make every single one of these playoff games outside at Beaver Stadium. 100,000 people can fit in that bad boy. You stuff that stadium full of people. You watch two Pennsylvania teams go at it. It'd be fantastic for the sport.
Well, I'll tell you what, the weather we're getting in the Northeast right now
Little bit of
might
snow,
actually
little bit of
allow that.
snow. It'd be like those New Year's Day games that they always host that are so fantastically watched.
That's not a bad idea. So either way, that rounds out the Eastern Conference for the NHL first round playoffs. In the Western Conference, moving forward here, the first game we have, which is kicking off tonight, is the Vegas Golden Knights, which is probably the biggest story in the NHL. They kicked off one of the most dominant seasons. They capped off a season, one of the most dominant seasons ever by an expansion team. They won the Pacific Division title. Unfortunately, though, getting a first-round matchup against the Los Angeles Kings, who have some players on the Kings, Kopitar and the likes, that have played in the playoffs before. They have a goaltender that has been a Stanley Cup winning goaltender before. So you wonder if that is going to be a tough series for Vegas when you looked at it and said, man, they had such a good year. Who knows? That was a tied series during the course of the year, 2-2. Moving forward, and it'll be fun to see if Vegas can do something in the Western Conference in their first year as a team. The Nashville Predators take on the Colorado Avalanche. This happened last year. You saw the Predators rise to greatness with a run to the Stanley Cup Finals. There's no reason why they can't do it again. In my opinion, this is probably going to be one of the easiest series to pick. I think Colorado might take a game in this series, but at the end of the day, it's probably going to be a 4 or a 5 game series. That's how good the Predators are. That's how good they're playing. And of course, they swept the Avalanche in the regular season. It is very hard to beat a team what would have to be 8 times in a row if the Nashville Predators were to sweep Colorado. That's why I think Colorado is going to steal a game, because I think it's so hard to beat a team that many times in one season. But either way, I think the Preds take that series pretty easily. The Winnipeg Jets take on the Minnesota Wild. The Jets took that series 3-1. The Wild enjoyed a big-time bounce-back campaign from Eric Staal. 42 goals this season, but unfortunately, they limp into the playoffs. They have not been playing that well down the stretch, so Winnipeg takes on Minnesota. I think Winnipeg ends up taking that series. And then the last series of the 8 in the NHL on the Western Conference side is the Anaheim Ducks against the San Jose Sharks. And what's intriguing to me...
Sharks beat Ducks most times in a fight.
And this is very true if we're in Mother Nature. But the Ducks are a very good team. They are missing one of their better defensemen, but they have a great goaltender. They have very good offensive pieces. One of our former New Jersey Devils, Adam Henrique, was traded there for Sami Vatanen at the midpoint of the year. I think the Ducks can take that series, but what's more intriguing for me than anything else is I just find it so cool that this year, one on the Western Conference side and one on the Eastern Conference side, you have a straight-up Pennsylvania matchup between the Flyers and the Penguins, and you have a straight-up California matchup between the Sharks and the Ducks. When things like that line up to me, I just think as a fan, that's cool stuff.
You hate to bring it up, but as a hockey guy, it happened over the weekend, or earlier this week, that terrible travesty in Canada, I'm sorry. Just an utter, fatal accident. What can you do? But the Humboldt Broncos, I believe it's a junior traveling team, right? Andrew?
Yep, it's a junior hockey team in Canada, and a really, really sad story. I believe they were hit by a tractor trailer, and a close to 15 people were pronounced dead, and the rest, there was a lot that were critically injured.
That whole town, it's a small county up there, 6,000 people maybe. So obviously everybody knows everybody. It's gonna be a real low, hard haul for them to get back to whole if they ever do. But you saw the outpour from the sports industry, the hockey industry, and everybody else putting up donations. And I mean, obviously, it sucks to have a tragedy, but you do see the good in people, and you know what? They'll survive. You know, they'll get better. I hate to bring it up, but obviously it's out there in the sports world. People are talking about it. I just want to give a little love, a little shout out to everybody up there.
No, you're 100% right, and it's necessary because I think it's important, and it's important for people to know what's going on out there. And obviously, everything isn't sunshine and rainbows. So from Anthony and myself and the Double A Balls podcast, and I'm sure anybody else that as a listener that's listening,
family.
Everybody, the DAAB family, from us to Humboldt to the families and the friends affected, we send our sincere condolences, and we just hope that everybody realizes the importance of sport and how it can change lives and how it can bring people together in even the hardest times.
Let's turn to a little happy note first before we spin out of hockey. I have a question for you. I want to see if one of our listeners sent his resume into New York Rangers for the head coaching position. Has Coach Rocky Romanella put his resume into the James Dolan's office yet?
Well, he's been a little busy with his newborn, beautiful daughter, Sophia, my goddaughter, shout out. But I would not be surprised because I wouldn't be surprised if my dad put his resume in first. Either way, I think it was time for Alain Vigneault to step away from the New York Rangers. Not because he's not a great coach. I think he's going to be scooped up quickly by a team in the NHL. I just think it was time for a different voice in New York. You saw the way that season went. It was rocky from the start. This is a team that had been in the playoffs each of the past, I believe, 5 or 6 seasons. They made a run to the Stanley Cup Finals. They'd been in the Eastern Conference Finals a few times. This was a perennial team under Alain Vigneault. And I just think it's much like the New York Mets, where Terry Collins was doing a pretty good job. He got them to the World Series in 15, and he had them competitive and back in the playoffs in 16. But at the end of the day, after one season out of the playoffs, you realize how much it was time for a new voice. I think that's what happened here with the New York Rangers.
I mean, listen, sometimes the voice is just a little stale. Happens with the Giants, Tom Coughlin. His tenure was up. They got stale. It's hearing the same message. It happens. You move on.
And then it happened quickly with Ben McAdoo, which was
Ben
probably for
McAdoo.
other reasons because he was not a good football coach. So that is the Frankie Franchise NHL update. Remember to call one of the best in home building and remodeling, Frankie Franchise, at 973-789-6236, or email him at frank.franchiseconstruction.com. So we started this last week, and clearly it got Anthony excited because he came in to the studio today whiling about wanting to talk about the NHL. So, another version of what does Anthony know about sports? Before we get into it, before we get into the excitement of what does Anthony know about sports, we're going to remind you, obviously, to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at AA Balls on both. But you knew that already. Why I'm telling you that is because we want you to send us your questions for Anthony about what he knows about sports. Right now, we're focused around hockey. We're trying to get his hockey brain up. It's the NHL playoffs. We're fired up. But this thing is going to go a world of a difference of ways in the sports world. So if you have something that you want to ask Anthony and see if he knows it about sports, please send us a DM on Instagram, tweet us on Twitter, send us an email, aaballs@gmail.com, and let us know what you want to ask Anthony. We will start with our first question of the day. Anthony Rinaldi. In 1983, the New Jersey Devils moved from what state, and what was their mascot?
What the F kind of question is that? You gave me free layups last week, now you come with the fire. I have no idea where it came from.
You said your brother worked for
he did
the
work
Devils.
For the Devils. Like, what does that mean, work for the Devils? Come on. I think I was I wasn't even born in 83.
In 83, the Devils moved from what state and what was their former mascot? I'll give you one hint.
Yes, I got a hint, Bob.
It is currently the name of an MLB franchise.
I
5 seconds.
I don't want to waste the dead air time, so I have no clue.
The New Jersey Devils moved from Colorado, and they were the Colorado Rockies.
Really?
Yes.
Colorado Rockies.
And then
What did the Avalanche? How did the Avalanche become Colorado?
just an expansion team. And then since moving to New Jersey, have won 3 Stanley Cups in 95, 2000, and 2003 to be one of the best teams during that span in the NHL. So we move forward on What Does Anthony Know About Sports? Question number 2. We're going to the rule book. When you pass the puck across the red line, the blue line, and the goal line without it being touched by anybody, that is called what?
Icing, Bob.
Ding, ding, ding! All right, 1 for 2. There is your layup. You're welcome. Now, I got an even harder one for you. Your hint. It's a metropolitan team. A player that played for that team. Who was the first player in NHL history to be the captain for 2 separate championship organizations?
Mark Messier.
Ding, ding, ding! Bonus question. Can you name the 2 teams?
Rangers in 94. I have no idea where he came from before that.
Across the border.
Canada.
Edmonton Oilers.
Edmonton Oilers.
Him and Wayne Gretzky were doing their thing up there, winning a lot of cups with the Oilers. Then he came to the New York Rangers and, as you said, won it in 94
Cried.
and was the first person in NHL history to captain 2 teams. Okay, last question. This is going to require a little bit of thinking, okay?
Oh, boy.
Feel free to cop out whenever you need to.
Phone a friend.
Question number 4 on the What Does Anthony Know About Sports is going to bring you into the general variety, okay? It includes all 4 sports. There are 6 teams, 6, in all 4 major sports that have the same name. Double. Meaning, a team in, let's say, baseball and football share the same mascot. Or a team in hockey and basketball share the same mascot. Can you name the 6 mascots that are doubled up?
That's a lot of thinking. Rangers, baseball.
1.
Giants.
Yep.
Football,
2.
baseball.
There you go. All right, we're moving forward.
The Jets, right?
3.
Hockey.
All right. We're moving
What else we
forward.
got here?
Okay.
That's hockey and college football. I say Gators doesn't count.
But I like where your head's at. At any point in time, you can cop out, but I know if you think about it,
yeah, right.
you're good enough to
There's
know
gotta
what
be
they
a few-
are.
There's got to be a few out on the West Coast, no?
Yeah, absolutely. There's one. I've mentioned one already just now in my hockey update.
Another one, the Ducks with the Oregon, another college football hockey.
There you go, which is another trivia question.
I'm going to cop out just for time's sake.
All right.
Give me the other 3.
The other 3, the Kings, Los Angeles and Sacramento, the Panthers, Carolina and Florida, and the Arizona Cardinals
Right.
and the St. Louis Cardinals.
That could have been done.
How about that? Now, when you hear the answers, don't you say to yourself, man, I definitely could have came up with that right away.
Right,
but
for time's sake.
For time's sake, I feel you.
We can't bore the 3 listeners have.
I'm going to give you a 2.5 out of 4 for this week's version of What Does Anthony Know About Sports. Overall, you are 5.5 out of 7. How do you feel?
That's Hall of Fame baseball, Andrew.
That is Hall of Fame in baseball, Anthony. And I'm actually pretty proud of you because of the 7 questions I've asked you, 6 of them have been about hockey. And
there you go.
Besides the Devils moving to New Jersey from Colorado, you were clean.
Who am I? Stump the Schwab?
Yes, you are.
I'll have a laptop in front of me. Come on.
Well, either way,
Who am I? Dave Rothenberg?
we're going to move forward on the AA Balls podcast. Remember, DAABpodcast.com, poweronperformance.com. Get your apparel, iTunes, Anchor, Podbean. Hit the subscribe button right now. Everybody in the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim uniform, Anthony Rinaldi, is subscribing to what Shohei Ohtani has done to start the 2018 campaign.
I believe his name is Showtime Ohtani.
True.
Because my man is balling out in LA.
Shohei Ohtani
Where do you hope?
has
Where's
done something that has not been done since Babe Ruth.
the Sultan of SWAT?
The Sultan of SWAT?
The King of Crash?
The King of Crash?
The Colossus of Clout?
The Colossus of Clout?
Baby Ruthie.
Sandlot. I believe it was just their 45th anniversary the other day.
One of the top 5 sports movies
Of all time.
Gonna
I said
watch
this.
that with my son.
I said this during our game yesterday. Tell me if I'm wrong. And we will get back to Shohei Ohtani. Don't worry. Tell me if I'm wrong. Every single bit of music that's used at a baseball game is essentially derived from the movie Sandlot.
100%.
We were thinking about it yesterday. In between at bats, the music that they used was the music that they played showing up to the ballpark before they played the team in the nice uniforms. We started putting it together yesterday. We realized all of the music in baseball is from when Sandlot was created and now has turned into what the sounds of baseball are, and more specifically professional baseball. Like, you're sitting there and you're listening to the music and you're going, I could see Benny the Jet Rodriguez running in his PF Flyers.
Guaranteed to make you
To
run
this
faster,
song.
jump higher, and whatever else they do.
Their New Balance released a special edition PF Flyer cleat that is the exact replica of the PF Flyers that Benny the Jet wore. And I'm going to get a picture. I'm going to put it on the Instagram. I'm going to put it on the Twitter. Our right fielder at Stack bought them. So beautiful. One of the cooler things that has been done. Sandlot, easily one of, if not the greatest baseball
Andrew,
movie of all
you
time.
play ball like a girl.
Right now, Shohei Ohtani is not. So, we mentioned the stat before. We're going to give it to you. 3 home runs in between 2 starts. First person since Babe Ruth to do that. Started 1, hit 3 home runs before he started again and won. And in his second start in Major League Baseball, went 19 up, 19 down, took a perfect game into the 7th inning, gave up 1 hit. I think he struck out 6, and got his second win in his big league career.
Question for you, Andrew. Do you think he'll give up more home runs or hit more home runs this season?
I think he'll hit more home runs this season because obviously if you start regularly in Major League Baseball, you're probably getting 30 to 35 starts over the course of a given year. If he's DHing every other day, the days that he's not pitching, then I would say I would put my money on him hitting more home runs than people hitting off of him. My guess is he's in the 27 to 28 range.
Yeah, I agree. I think what he's doing is phenomenal. You saw what you explained to me prior to the show about his little adjustments he's made from where he came from to where he is now. It was absolutely phenomenal.
Shohei Ohtani had a leg kick when he was in Japan. If you started watching video of Shohei Ohtani, and I believe it was Harold Reynolds that went through this and discussed it and showed some video of it. If you watch Shohei Ohtani when he was in spring training, his leg is in the air while the baseball is nearly halfway to the plate already. His timing was so off from when he needed to get ready to swing to when he was ready to trigger and hit the baseball. Now, as you watch him in the regular season, his leg kick, his front knee, which would be as a lefty, his right knee, is not as high in the air. His leg is not as high off the ground. Therefore, now when he's timed up and getting ready to hit the baseball, it's when the pitcher is about to release it from his hand. Since he's seeing 95 and 96, that is the biggest adjustment he needed to make, Anthony, because everybody knew the talent was there. Once they realized he simply just needed to get his timing down, get acclimated to Major League Baseball from that standpoint, making a huge adjustment, which I credit him and the Angels for doing. Now you see how good Shohei Ohtani can and probably will be.
Do you think that puts the Angels up there in the American
Yes.
West?
Yes.
They're playing pretty well. Trout is just filling up stats.
Trout is so good. He
Shout
is
out
the
my
best
fantasy
player
squad.
in baseball.
I got him and Harper. Oh, come
Best
on.
player in baseball right there, Mike Trout. Yes, I do. And they're off to a hot start, are the Angels as well. Let's slide to the hometown teams because there's a lot of big stories for both New York teams, both the Mets and the Yankees. But right now, I think the bigger story is the injury list piling up for the New York Yankees.
Oh, here, let me just rattle it off for you, Andrew, so I have it handy. CC Sabathia, hip. Brennan Drury, migraines. Tyler Wade, I don't think he's out too long. He's just sick. But Gary Sanchez, he should be playing, actually, I believe, tonight in Boston. Bird, he's still out with the ankle. Aaron Hicks, intercostal, he's coming back. Ellsbury got shut down with an oblique. Clint Frazier's coming back with concussions. And Brandon McKinney has a bum shoulder.
Right, what scares you about
Anybody
Frazier?
else? Anybody else? Well, I
The
mean,
head.
Some of those names aren't too bad.
But Bird bad, Frazier not great. Ellsbury's not great.
That's a crowded outfield, though.
Just right.
But you're right. For depth purposes.
And the ability that Frazier would have had an opportunity with the injuries that happened early in the year. McKinney and Hicks go down, then Ellsbury goes down in his rehab.
Again, yeah.
All of a sudden, you're looking at it, if you're Clint Frazier and you're healthy at that moment in time, that's your chance right there. And unfortunately, he doesn't get it because the concussion is a lingering effect right now.
Right, and now they think that's Brennan Drury's going through. With these, I think they're severe migraines. They're not even migraines. So hopefully.
And all that head stuff right now, man, everyone's trying to be safe. It doesn't matter what sport.
Right.
Everyone's trying to be safe.
Well, let me ask you real quick about that. Did you see that play at home plate between Didi and the Baltimore Orioles pitcher? That wild pitch where he tried to come home. You know the whole rule about you can't block the plate anymore? Well, wild pitch, Didi's coming home from third. He slides head first. The pitcher doesn't have the ball yet. Does like a crouch slide, blocks the plate. So Didi has nowhere to go. Catches the ball, tags Didi. Umpire calls him out. That was in, I think, like the 10th or 11th inning. So the game would have been over. Because, is that, in your knowledge of the rule of catchers can't block the plate anymore, basically it was a bunch of posy. But this was kind of player now. And it was so bang, bang. I don't believe it was a wrong call. I know a lot of people at ESPN were like, oh my God, how did they not overturn that? And the Yankees should have won that game, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's one of 162. But check that play out later, Andrew.
No, I know exactly what you're talking about. I can see it in my head right now. The biggest thing is the guy going into home plate has to have a lane. That is the biggest thing. So
there was no lane because it was covered.
Right. What ends up happening in a play like that, and again, this is pure opinion, Anthony. Obviously, yeah, I coach the game of baseball every single day, but at the end of the day, it's just my pure opinion. Umpires making a judgment call there because they know two things. A, how uncomfortable the pitcher is in that situation going home, and then B, to build off of that, how unnatural that play is for a pitcher and how little that happens for the pitcher, that more times than not, they're going to give the pitcher the benefit of the doubt on that play. Why I'm saying that didn't get called blocking home plate, I guarantee you, if that was a throw home from the outfield and a guy was rounding third and the catcher had his body in front of home plate, maybe a little bit up the line, and was blocking it before the ball got there, they're calling that catcher's interference 100% of the time. I think it's the benefit of the doubt to the pitcher that changes that call.
I just wonder if Didi doesn't slide head first, if he either goes foot first and cleats the pitcher right in the face or throat, or just stands up and bowls and runs him over. Like, what do you do there? Again, it was so bang, bang.
Well, you probably don't cleat him in the throat or run him over because both are going to get you ejected from the game and probably suspended.
What? This is baseball, man. I got to get home plate.
Unfortunately, and I agree, though, they took that rule
They changed those rules?
out of it.
Since when, Andrew?
Unbelievable.
What is this?
Unbelievable.
What's unbelievable is this disappointing bullpen for the New York Yankees. Supposedly a strong suit coming into the season was our depth and our bullpen. Clearly we have none of it because, all right, relax, we're 5-5. It's only 10 games.
But, so, I heard this the other day. Now that you say that, it's 5-5, it's only 10 games. I agree with you. Sometimes things happen early. You go through your adversity earlier rather than later. I'm a firm believer that I want my team, whatever team it is, the last 2 months of the season playing their best sport, basketball, football, baseball, hockey, whatever it is. In the Yankees' case, they're going to be completely fine. Everything's going to iron itself out. But I heard this the other day. If they lose this next series and you're 6-7, or you get swept and you're 5-8, it's not panic. It's not panic. But do you start to have a cause for concern?
Losing to Boston, yeah, you get swept by Boston. You're going to see a lot of people calling the sports love radio. You're going to have to talk a lot of Yankee fans off the ledge. Because, of course, we're Yankee fans. It's World Series or bust.
It's crazy every year. Doesn't matter who's on your roster.
Exactly. And you know what? The rebuild happened. They spoiled us last year, Andrew.
It's true.
That was
You're
supposed
right.
to be a rebuild process.
This year was supposed to be last year.
We haven't seen it. It was basically they took that rebuild and said, "F you, we're going to the World Series." One game of the World Series last year. So we're right there. The Houston Astros last year started 4-4. You know what? It's going to take Giancarlo some time. Everyone's screaming, what a mess that is. The dude is a California kid who played in Miami. Dude's never seen cold weather before.
Great point.
You see him bundled up. He's wearing a hoodie. He's got a friggin' Scully on. He's probably wearing 8 batting gloves. He's uncomfortable right now in this New York cold.
And I can tell you, I have now coached 28 to 32, somewhere in that range, baseball games from the date of February 16th to today, April 11th. And it is miserable. I've played games in 25-degree weather with 25-mile-per-hour winds. I played even a game last night that was maybe 35, 36, maybe hit 40 for a little bit when the sun went down, but still with a little bit of wind. I had 4 or 5 layers on. It is miserable. And when you're a guy that looks at it and says, the 90% of my season is not played in this weather, who cares if the first 15 games of the year I'm not great? I'm literally just miserable playing the game of baseball. Watch. Giancarlo Stanton's going to go off in about 3 weeks. It's going to be 65 degrees and sunny, and you're going to see that guy hitting bombs. Not striking out 5 times. Maybe he has another 0 for 5 day. Sure, that's fine. That happens to everybody. But you're not going to see him strike out 5 more times. Because to your point, that is purely the 6 inches between his ears not wanting to essentially be there at that moment. Because it's so miserable out there.
Yeah, I think that, not to make excuses for the team. You're professionals. You're making lots of money.
Which is the other argument.
Right, but I'm not. As a Yankees fan, it's 160. It's still got 152 games left. A lot of baseball left. We got to see what happens. Everybody comes back a little healthy. Maybe we keep things rolling.
Listen to some of these bullpen ERAs, because I know that you just mentioned it, and it was supposed to be a focal point for them. Now, some of these numbers, at first, you say to yourself, that's not that bad, but you're a bullpen guy, and if you're a lights-out bullpen guy like they're supposed to be, I want your ERA anywhere under 3. Anywhere under 3. Ideally, I probably want it under 2.5. That's really what my lockdown bullpen guys are, about a 1.5. That's where my lockdown bullpen guys are. Listen to some of these bullpen guys for the New York Yankees. Tommy Kahnle, 318. Chad Green, 360. Dellin Betances, 450. Adam Warren, 491. David Robertson, 540. Domingo German, 1013. Not that he's really going to factor into it. And Jonathan Holder, 2025.
Is it the year's graduating high school?
Isn't that unbelievable?
2025 is the year, right?
Unbelievable. And that's 2.2 innings pitched. Because if you look at your starters, now, Jason Shreve in 4 innings is a 0 ERA. Luis Sessa, he's only thrown in 1 game, 0 ERA. Aroldis Chapman, 1.8. So those 3 guys have showed up. But Luis Severino has a 1.38. He's gone out there and only given up 6 hits in 13 innings. Masahiro Tanaka has only given up 9 hits in 12 1/3 innings. Tanaka struck out 15.
Tanaka gives it the long ball, though.
That's the problem. Severino struck out 14. Sonny Gray struck out 12. Sonny Gray's ERA is a 3.6. So what I'm saying is your starters are doing everything you need them to do. And if your bullpen does what you think or know it's supposed to do, you're money.
You hit it on the head, Andrew. Bullpen and our big guns have not showed up yet for the Bronx Bombers. I'm looking at you, Giancarlo. Looking at you, Aaron Judge, Gary Sanchez. If not for Didi in that one game getting 8 RBI alone, they could be looking at a under 500 record.
Didi Gregorius is going to be the MVP of the New York Yankees.
Austin Roman had a few nice games for Sanchez while he was, mending the calf. Drury had a few nice hits before he went down with injury. Neil Walker's played a nice little role there. So it's a lot of our Brett Garner's done his typical self. A lot of our usual guys. And it's the big guns that need to show up. The bullpen needs to wise up. Our starters need to go a little longer. I mean, obviously, you lost CeCe. I think he gave you 4, then all of a sudden went down with that hip injury. So they had to come in early for that one.
Yeah, he was throwing pretty well. He was doing everything you needed CeCe to do.
Right. The problem, I had one issue with the start. Well, I believe it was Sunday. When the Yankees jumped out to a 5-0 lead in the first, and Montgomery struggled.
Yeah.
When they spot you 5 runs in the first,
you can't give that.
You gotta at least give them 6. I don't care what it takes. I mean, you gotta give at least 6.
And no less than 3 runs can be given up. It's okay. If you want to go out there and you want to pound the strike zone and almost say, hey, hit it, let's go ahead, because I'm not going to walk you. I'm going to make you try and earn this. Fine. That's fine with me. And you give up maybe 2 or 3 runs. That's okay. But you can't go out and do what he did.
No, he looked... Joe Girardi was brilliant at managing the bullpen. All the different moving parts. You see him, the lefty specialist, the righty specialist. You only have 6 mound visits now, so you got to factor that in. I don't want to say Boone, obviously it's his first year managing, so he's going to come across some issues. I thought he left Betances in too long, that that opening series where he got shelled all of a sudden. He's made some interesting bullpen moves. I'm not going to blame Boone just yet because the player's got to play. At the end of the day,
you can't have Giancarlo Stanton striking out 20 of 42 at bats, 50% of the time.
Right.
You can't have that.
I mean, he's good for anywhere between. I believe in the Marlins he averaged anywhere from 150 to 170 strikeouts a year.
Yep.
So listen, he's going to get him. Obviously, he's got a lot right now.
And Judge is up there too, so you're going to get that from both those guys. The problem is you're also not getting the production from them early as well.
Right. Again, I'm gonna blame Mother Nature.
And it's 10.
It's gonna be
it's
70
the beginning of the
degrees
year.
Northeast this weekend. Come give me the sunshine, Andrew. I hear the birds chirping outside. You may hear that as background noise.
I agree.
No, that's not Twitter blowing up. Those are actual birds.
Tweet us. Instagram us.
Social media.
Double A balls on both. Mickey Callaway said this for the New York Mets.
This 8-1 New York Mets?
The 8-1 New York Mets.
Wow.
Actually, 9-1 New York Mets. The 8-1 New York Mets are playing very well. Mickey Callaway said this the other day about what he needed to be doing, moves-wise. And he made his first double switch in Major League Baseball and said he was so nervous. He said the one thing he was the most nervous about in spring training, this is what you forget about with the National League Baseball and the American League Baseball. See, with the American League, you have the DH. So the only thing that gets adjusted is if you decide to remove your DH and hit a pitcher in the DH slot. But you would never do that on an American League roster anyways. That only comes into play in college, really, when you have a two-way guy or a guy like Shohei Ohtani. So let's say in the playoffs, the Angels are... Shohei Ohtani's not starting, but he's available to come out of the pen. But they want him to hit in the DH slot. So Shohei Ohtani can hit in the DH slot, and then they can enter him in onto the mound, but that means now you no longer have the DH. So the next person that comes in for Shohei Ohtani then also has to hit for himself, or you have to pinch hit in that slot. With a double switch, when you make that move in the National League, you end up switching where the pitcher's spot is in the lineup so that you can get an offensive guy as your pinch hitter in that slot. So let's say the pitcher's leading off the next inning. So when you make that move, you're going to pinch hit for the pitcher. You're going to put that guy into the field. You're going to pull somebody out, and you're going to flip-flop those two spots. So you make a switch in the pitcher's spot for the guy coming into the game, and then you make a move where the pitcher's going into the slot where the guy is coming out from the outfield. It's a crazy move. Mickey Callaway is, I'm nervous. I'm nervous for this all year. All spring training, this is what I talked about. This is what I was most nervous about. What happens, he gets out for a mound visit, doesn't have his cards with him, doesn't have any of his stuff with him. Somebody gets hurt, he has to make his double switch without any of his stuff, just off the top of his head for the first time ever, and he did it correctly. But it's one of those funny things when you start talking about bringing bullpen guys in and you start talking about what managers have to do in terms of managing. People forget what National League managers have to do because the pitchers hit.
Explain to me what brilliant manager did early on against Washington. After I think Bryce Harper got on, did he intentionally walk two batters? What inning was that? Do you remember? I forgot what he did. I think Bryce Harper got up, or he intentionally walked the two batters behind him to somebody, and it worked out in his favor.
Yeah, I want to say it was like the fifth.
Was it the fifth inning?
Because it was earlier.
It was early.
It was earlier, but yeah, it's a different way of thinking now in baseball, and it's not even just the Mets. I feel like I see this everywhere. Again, we talked about the Phillies with how Gabe Kapler had made, I think it was 21 pitching changes.
He'll be gone by
3 games or something like that.
Dude, he's done.
Yeah, Philadelphia is not happy.
Did you
with
hear
Gabe
that?
Kapler.
I heard that one thing.
Booze
ESPN.
everywhere
I heard that
there.
one thing on ESPN where one guy was like, "Coach, why aren't I in the lineup?" And he was like, "I don't know. The computer makes the lineup."
That's crazy. It's crazy to me to think that
computer
you're
spits out this guy's
managing a Major League Baseball team
Sabermetrics
with a computer. See, this is going to prove. I think we're going to rewind a hair here. This whole sabermetrics thing, this whole Gabe Kapler thing, some of these ridiculously heavy analytics guys are going to prove the Oakland Athletics. They prove it every year. Analytics can't win you a championship.
Billy Beanball.
You need a manager that can manage your players, emotions, their abilities. Listen, I've been in a professional locker room before. Maybe I haven't been in a Major League Baseball locker room, but I've been around enough guys that know it and have talked to me about it, and I've been in my own professional baseball locker room before too at the independent level. You're managing some type of ego, because when you get a paycheck to play a sport, there is an ego there. So you don't want a guy coming in there trying to change everything you're doing or talking to you every day about changing what you do and how you do it. You want a guy making tweaks. You want a guy making minor adjustments, talking to you mentally, getting you in the right mindset to play the game, keeping the clubhouse happy, keeping the clubhouse connected, making it a good vibe. That's what and then managing the players and putting them in the best place to succeed. A computer can't do that because they don't know the personalities and they don't know the emotions of these players. How can you go win a championship that way? How?
Perfect example would be your boy Matt Harvey. Last year, going through the dramas of breaking up with celebrity stars, getting dumped for Julian Edelman type things. All that nonsense that the computer doesn't know. Matt Harvey's having a bad day, having a bad hair day. His dog had a left leg injury. Now he's all limping and he's all upset. Computers don't know that. You're right. A manager knows his players day in, day out. And your boy Mickey Callaway has him out to an 8-1 record.
He's a great manager, and I just think
Explain to me that Mets winning formula since they lost the opening day and then rattled off 8 straight.
They hired Mickey Callaway because they wanted a pitching guy, because the pitching is the strong suit of this organization. Noah Syndergaard is healthy, in a good place mentally. He's nimble, he's flexible, he's throwing the ball really hard, and he still haven't even gotten his best stuff yet, and that's good. I'm okay with that because he's already won 2 games. Yeah, he had a bad start, he went 4 innings. I don't care about that. That stuff happens. The team picked him up that day, that's all that matters. Jacob deGrom is a bona fide ace. He's proven it the last 3 years. He's going to keep proving it every single day. Steven Matz is actually showing, as long as he stays healthy, that he can get big leagues hitters out and he can give you a good 6 innings and be a solid number 3 starter for a professional team. Matt Harvey is pseudo back. He's not throwing the ball as hard, but he's learning how to pitch. And that's what's so important about Mickey Callaway and the rest of the Mets coaching staff that has come in here this year and changed the mindset of these guys. In an interview the other day, Mickey Callaway spoke about how he only really talks mentally with the pitchers, how that's the biggest thing he wants to get through to them is how to respond mentally in situations and in games. And I think that's throughout the whole clubhouse. You look at the way these guys are going about at bats right now. They're having at bats, and they're not winning games off of home runs. They meet the Marlins. I believe it was on Monday night, 4-2. They had 5 singles and 1 double to score 4 runs. They're going first to third on singles. They're taking the extra base when they can. They're reading balls in the dirt. They're being as aggressive as they can be. If they can find a way to answer their catching questions, because I think Major League Baseball teams are like 14 for 14 stealing against them right now, they could legit stay healthy and be a World Series contender.
What I found intriguing about the Mets, I watched a little bit of that Sunday night game against Washington. they came back quite a few times. They're up, they're down, they're up, they're down. So that's got to be, as a Mets, as the Homer Mets fan you are, you really got to love that aspect of your team, that no matter what the deficit or no matter who's on the mound or what, your team's got that fight, that no quit attitude. That, hey, you know what, we got this. Let's hit a few balls. Let's do the small ball. Let's move them over. Let's generate the runs, because you know what, we'll hold it down at the end. And that's a winning recipe, Andrew.
Josh Lewin said it on the broadcast last night on the radio. Probably one of the most impressive things from the New York Mets right now is every time a team scores a run, it seems like in the next half inning, they find a way to get a run back and either A, tie the game or take the lead, or what's been happening more recently is they've been able to find a way to build leads. And it doesn't mean you have to score 5 runs and score another 5. It's just chipping away. Here's 1 run. Here's another 1 run. Here's another 1 run. All of a sudden, you've put together 5, 6, 7 runs in a game. And it wasn't spectacular. It wasn't 450 feet into center field. But what it was the team working together in their at-bats as a lineup to find a way to win the ballgame.
Just keep winning, baby.
Just keep winning. And if you aren't winning with your windows, doors, thermopanes, maybe a broken tabletop, or you want to enhance a dull picture frame, we have somebody that will help you learn the winning ways, and that is Hawthorne Glass. And that is our man Angelo, who's had 3 decades of quality service in the glass industry. So if you're tired of looking through those dirty windows or thermopanes, call him at 973-427-4344 and schedule your home consultation today. And when you do, mention Double A Balls Podcast and you will receive 10% off your first purchase. So remember, the best in the glass industry, folks. That is Hawthorne Glass. That's our man Angelo. His phone number is 973-427-4344. What does that mean, Anthony Rinaldi?
That means we're going to discuss this crappy promo that you do called What Do You Got?
What do you got? Yes, we are.
Literally still rolling.
What do you got?
And I can't hit the ocean from a boat.
What happened last week, Anthony Rinaldi?
I don't know, you cheap. This What Do You Got last week is under protest.
Why?
I don't know how I let you get away with this. Taking this Sunday at the Masters, that's like taking Game 7 of a hockey playoff game, dude. You know it's going to be good. Come on, that's too easy.
You don't though. We've
Come
seen
on.
Tiger win tournaments in majors by 17 strokes. You've seen guys completely fall off the map on a Sunday, and all of a sudden there's no contest. This was legit. This was, I think, Spieth was 8 under on the last day. Patrick Reed won the Masters. First-time Masters guy. Interesting backstory. Hasn't talked to his family since, I think, 2012. But they actually lived 3 miles away from the golf course at Augusta. I read that story this morning. I'm going to actually put that story up on DAABpodcast.com either today or tomorrow. So if you want to read that story, it's a very interesting story to hear because his family was watching. They were very excited. Either way, Patrick Reed, first-time Masters champion. But Anthony, I don't see how it's not fair. It's a great sports day. And in golf, that's what a game is. It's a day of golf. It's a tournament.
Listen, you can try and justify you picking Sunday at the Masters. I'll give you that one. I'm not going to give you your performer. DJ played all right.
Yeah, he was all right.
He wasn't a factor on the stretch like a lot of people were hoping. I think he was. Was he number 1 beforehand going in? Was he ranked number 1?
No. Last year he was.
Oh, last year he was, right?
Last year he was
He's
ranked.
kind of been injured this year a little bit, right?
Yeah, that's
He hasn't played much this year.
But I mean, he finished 10th and he was tied. He was tied for 10th and he was 7 under.
What was Bubba? Did I pick Bubba?
You picked Bubba and Bubba was tied for 5th. He was 9 under.
Oh, so I should technically I should get a point for that one.
The top of the no because you picked
Oh,
a terrible pick, and I think it was Jason Tatum in the Boston Celtics versus the Raptors.
Brutal.
With a brutal basketball game.
I think my 8-month-old son picked those.
So I will
I'm
take.
gonna blame him. Good parenting there, huh?
We will.
Blaming your 8-month-old for
Right.
terrible picks.
Yeah, great parenting. Didn't
My
he
son
pick
ate
your
my
bracket too? Didn't he pick your
He
bracket
did.
too?
He picked UMBC over Virginia.
Maybe we'll wait a few years for him to do that next. So 12-10 for Andrew, 10-12 for Anthony. And let's just listen to this real quick before you make your this week's What Do You Got pick, Anthony. Patrick Reed finished in first place He made $1.98 million. Ricky Fowler finished in second place. He made $1.18 million. Jordan Spieth finished in third place. He made $748,000. John Ram finished in fourth place. He made $528,000. Right? Okay, that's your top four.
Tough for a long weekend of work.
Now I've scrolled all the way down to the bottom of the cut list, and
30K.
Shez Reavie finishes in 53rd place. That's the last spot, not cut, and he finishes with $26,400.
What was he plus what? 10?
He was plus 10,
Nice.
and then I just decided, let me scroll all the way down to the bottom, and 15 to 20 guys that didn't make the cut make $10,000. Golf is as lucrative as a sport as it gets.
Listen, Jordan Spieth is like the mold of every father's dream for their son. I mean, I think he collected like $90 million by the age of 21 by Nike at his winnings on the tour.
That's insane.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's crazy.
Thank you very much, Tiger Woods.
In total, it was $11 million.
You can thank Tiger Woods for all of this, by the way.
100%.
The fact that what he did when he was younger in the 90s and early 2000s, he streamlined golf. He has raised the bar. He
made it exciting to watch on
Sundays.
Sundays.
Everybody can thank him for their nicer houses, nicer cars.
And for red Nike polos because they're fantastic. So,
But he can't. Did you hear that story? Patrick Reed couldn't wear the red Nike.
Because
Patrick Reed also likes to wear red.
Oh, because of Tiger.
Since he signed with Nike, they made him wear pink.
I think that's awesome.
But I think he's gonna go pink from now on. You win the Masters.
You win the Masters. You're wearing what? I don't care if I was wearing turquoise or tie-dye or brown or the worst color in the world. If I win the Masters, that is my Sunday gear for the rest of my career.
Well, he wore his green jacket to Madison Square Garden for the Knicks Cavaliers last night.
Good for him. Good for him.
He got slighted by LeBron, though.
Moving forward, my guess is you're going to go on the hardwood with your what do you got pick. So, Anthony Rinaldi.
That's clearly in my winning direction.
It's a weekly activity. It is what do you got?
What do you got?
Andrew, what do I got is what everybody should be watching. It's actually tonight. So I'm going to put a little pressure on you, Mix Master Flash, and get this podcast out to our thousands of listeners. But they need to watch the one and only remaining playoff spot in the Western Conference playoffs. That's the Timberwolves versus the Nuggets. Let me get the actual schedule for you. That is, listen, have you realized Minnesota, it's been 14 years. 14 years.
Kevin Garnett engineered the last team.
The playoffs. Let me see, that's
Minnesota versus Denver. I like it.
That's an 8 p.m. start. Looks like it's on Fox Sports Network.
All right.
FSN.
And your player?
And my player is the one, the only, Carl Anthony Towns.
Cat.
Give me the cat, the Bobcat, Mr. Cat, Minnesota Cat,
Timber
whatever
Cat.
you call him. He's gonna get his team to the playoffs to get ousted by the Houston Rockets in 4.
All right. So Minnesota versus Denver and Carl Anthony Towns. I like it. Andrew, what do you got? Has a little bit of hockey for you. And because I am so fired up that my New Jersey Devils are in the playoffs for the first time in a few years, I am excited. The Devils,
goalie, right?
The Devils play the Lightning. I'm just going to ignore that. The Devils play the Lightning on Thursday for their first game of their 7-game series in the Eastern Conference first round of the playoffs. And I'm going to take not Martin Brodeur, since he is retired and since in the rafters. I'm going to take Keith Kincaid, who has been the starting goaltender for the New Jersey Devils down the stretch. Corey Schneider was traded over to New Jersey 3 years ago from Vancouver to really take over for Martin Brodeur and got hurt through the midpoint of this year. And since that moment in time, Keith Kincaid has absolutely been a spark for this New Jersey Devils team. He has been the goalie that they need, and everybody knows that as a hockey fan out there, you need a great starting goaltender to win a Stanley Cup. That is how you win in the playoffs. You need to have a goalie that can bail you out in bad times, and you need a goalie that can be consistent for you. Keith Kincaid played 41 games this year. Again, a lot due to injury, but then once Corey Schneider came back, John Hines, the head coach of New Jersey Devils, made the decision to go with Kincaid. 26-10. He had a .277 goals against average and a .913 save percentage. So Keith Kincaid is my what do you got performer pick of the week, and the New Jersey Devils at the Toronto Maple Leafs on Thursday is my what do you got game of the week.
Tampa Bay Lightning.
Tampa Bay Lightning.
Look at me correcting the hockey guy.
Very, very nice.
One more point for Anthony. I'm 11-12.
Remember to tune in to the Double A Balls podcast now on Friday mornings. Yep, that's right. It's the Friday morning DAAB. And this week, we will be able to discuss our What Do You Got picks on the Friday morning DAAB because they will have happened already. So stay tuned for that. We will obviously discuss what the NBA playoff picture is at that moment in time because it will be determined by Friday morning, as well as what has already happened in the first few games of the NHL playoffs, and of course, whatever baseball we can give you, we will be giving you for the next 5 months or so. We will touch on that as well. So again, DAABpodcast.com, iTunes, Anchor, Podbean.
Maybe we should talk about the Duke a little bit, and that's a little NFL football. A little pot stirring going on. I know it's
the draft's coming up.
We should do a little dabbing on the Duke.
We'll dab on football on this Friday morning, and you'll get that on iTunes, Anchor, and Podbean. Follow us on social media, Twitter and Instagram.
Social media.
Double A Balls on both. This is the Double A Balls podcast. I am Andrew Romanella.
I'm Anthony Rinaldi.
We want to thank you for your continued support, and we want to remind you to tell your friends.
Tell your friends. Tell your friends. Lucky number 13. Done and done. Andrew, take us out of here.
DAABpodcast.com. Get your apparel, poweronperformance.com. We are the Double A Balls podcast, and we are out.
They gon' love me for my ambition. Easy to dream a dream, but what's harder to live?
This has been the Double A Balls podcast, powered by Power Arm Performance, your leader in baseball and softball training apparel. Visit www.powerarmperformance.com to get your apparel and start training like the pros today.
My ambition to win, just to get me some ends, help me pay my little rent, maybe sit in the bins. I saw mama praying as she wait on results. It was hot in the kitchen, can I wait on the porch? My father was missing, Warlord Oliver North.